So they did not see this one coming. And a massive blow to Democrats, ladies and gentlemen, the Virginia Supreme Court has struck down their redistricting plan, dimming the party's midterm hopes. And so after Democrats pulled out all of the stops, they had Obama, he came out, they spent $80 million trying to push this through. And they used what only could really be described as deceptive, manipulative language to confuse voters into supporting it. The state Supreme Court has now spoken and said, it's a no-go. And so, yeah, we got a lot to break down and get into. And so first, let's start with this.
Maximum warfare everywhere, all the time, in connection with the redistricting battle that Republicans launched. I stand by it. You can continue to criticize me for it. I don't give a damn about your criticism. Our message to Florida Republicans is F around and find out. If they go down the road of a DeSantis dummy-mander, the Florida Republicans are going to find themselves in the same situation as Texas Republicans, who are on the run right now.
From the Virginia State Supreme Court ruling the process to redraw that state's congressional maps is unconstitutional. They had a referendum on this statewide. Shannon Bream is here to join Instant Reaction. Shannon, welcome to our coverage. Good day to you. A couple of things here just come to mind. Barack Obama was out there campaigning to make sure people were into this issue and would get out. It passed, but not by a lot, but it did pass. And it would have effectively, Democrats believe, made it 10-1 Democrats to Republicans. I think the current figuration is 6-5.
Right.
So this is thrown out. Is that the end of the line for now, Shannon?
It sounds like it, because this was an issue of the Virginia Constitution. It was a state law issue, and critics of this referendum have said from the beginning that Democrats were on thin ice because they did not follow procedures as outlined by state law and state constitution. And what the court ended up saying here is that violation irreparably undermined the integrity of the entire voting referendum, said it makes it null and void. And for that reason, they say the congressional district maps issued by the court in 2021, the old maps are the ones that they've got to use for the upcoming congressional election. Now, this was a state matter. Virginia's Supreme Court, the highest court in that state, it's a Commonwealth, they'll remind you, made this decision. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility that challengers to this decision would try to find some federal hook for it, to try to get to the Supreme Court to say that there is some U.S. constitutional violation in the way that this ruling was made. It's a very tough ask, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do it, because what have you got to lose at this point?
Well, what they have to lose is face. I didn't have time to pull the Hakeem Jeffries soundbite of right afterwards, and he went to the podium and he said, F-A-F-O, and we've got you. And then for like 48 hours, there was news coverage saying, well, the Democrats really flipped the script of redistricting on the president. Then this week, the president won those races in Indiana to try to put that back in. You had Tennessee do what it did. You had the Supreme Court just last week. And so now I sort of feel that the Virginian Democrats irritated everybody, made everybody mad, and then they lost. And so what they could lose is, one, self-respect maybe, but also funding and the seats that they thought they were going to win.
Yeah, and the momentum, because you mentioned all of those things are such huge developments. That Calais decision out of the Supreme Court last week triggered what we just saw in Tennessee. Alabama's going to make a run at it. Louisiana has to. South Carolina may be in the mix. So while Democrats have seemed to be gaining sort of a net advantage in a lot of what they've done in the redistricting, and they point to Republicans, you guys started this in Texas, those decisions and this one today that just landed, they are big wins for Republicans.
And so I just want to go ahead and read off the court's ruling. We'll go into Section 3. While the Commonwealth is free by its lights to do the right thing for the right reason, the rule of law requires that it be done the right way. Under the Constitution of Virginia, the right way necessitates compliance with the requirements of a deliberately lengthy, precise, and balanced procedure. Coleman 19 VA at 153, governing the lawful adoption of constitutional amendments. Strict compliance with these mandatory provisions is required in order that all proposed constitutional amendments shall receive the deliberate consideration and careful scrutiny that they deserve. In this case, the Commonwealth submitted a proposed constitutional amendment to Virginia voters in an unprecedented manner that violated the intervening election requirement in Article 12, Section 1 of the Constitution of Virginia. The violation irreparably undermines the integrity of the resulting referendum vote and renders it null and void. For this reason, the congressional district maps issued by the court in 2021 pursuant to Article 12, Section 6A of the Constitution of Virginia remain the governing maps of the upcoming 2026 congressional elections. And so now let's go to the CNN clip. I want to react to it because they're highly upset that Democrats are basically getting beat at their own game, ladies and gentlemen, with the Supreme Court coming down earlier this week with the ruling for Louisiana. And now you have the state Supreme Court of Virginia overturning the 10-1 maps that Democrats tried to create out there. And so I want to react to the CNN clip. Take a listen.
And this is making it worse.
I think we also have to understand that Black Americans have faced barricade after barricade after barricade in front of them forever for voting. So to take a majority Black district like Memphis and split it up, pull it into 3 separate sections so it goes into rural Tennessee, if you aren't familiar with the state, they're taking a Black district and stretching it out so that the white voters overtake the Black voters in those 3 districts. That's deliberately trying to make one party have no representation. It is an abuse of power. We should say that. This is not just a Black voter problem, because if anyone thinks their vote should count, this is a problem. This is starting with Black voters, but it'll carry on to all of us.
And so let me just stop it right there because I want to push back on that. That's literally what Virginia tried to do. They took the DC suburbs, broke them up, stretched them out into rural Virginia 5, 6 different ways. And so Democrats are not upset that this can be done. They're upset that Republicans have decided they're going to do it too. The only difference is Republicans actually have a leg to stand on because the Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot draw districts based primarily on race. And so, yeah, Memphis, you cannot just say, let's take all these Black voters, pack them together, and guarantee Democrats a seat in Congress. That's why they are mad. And now they're trying to hide behind this idea that this is all about Black voters' voices and civil rights. But let's be honest. Do you think if they grouped all those Black voters into one district and this district voted 50-50 down the middle, or 60-40, 70-30, still in favor of Democrats, but, you know, a little bit more balanced somewhat, do you think Democrats will still care? No. It's because it's so one-sided. The Black community votes so one-sided when it comes to politics. And so they want to make this about race because that's the low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest emotional argument to make. But underneath all of that, this is really about political power for Democrats. But let's continue.
I'm actually glad. Let's show the picture again. I'm glad that you brought up that he's a white representative that represents Black districts, because guess what? They had the opportunity to choose. This is about taking away Black Americans' opportunity to choose who they want to represent them. So whether that is white Representative Cohen, if that is Representative Pearson, who's Black, who's running for that same district, who is, you know, running against Cohen, the bottom line is it was set up, the Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act was set up to allow my community to have the choice, because so many choices have been taken away from us.
Yeah, so Democrats are trying to argue that if you break up a majority Black district, you're taking away Black voters' right to choose their representative. But that argument only works if you believe Black voters are entitled to a guaranteed political outcome, not just equal vote. Yeah, and that's the part that they don't want to say out loud. Every Black voter in Memphis still gets to vote. Their ballot still counts. Their voice still matters. What Democrats are really upset about is that they no longer have a district drawn in a way that pretty much guarantees a Democrat will win every single time. That's not the same thing as voter suppression as they want to try to make it sound. That's not the same thing as taking away someone's voting rights. That is Democrats losing a built-in political advantage and trying to call it a civil rights crisis. And so the question simply becomes, are Democrats fighting for Black voters to have an equal voice, or are they fighting to keep Black voters concentrated in one district because it benefits Democrats politically? But let's go to jump into this next part of the clip, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. One of the panelists makes a point and says, one of the conservative panelists makes a point and says, isn't it a little ironic that the woman now who is likely going to win the 9th congressional district in Tennessee is a Black Republican woman instead of a white Democrat male? But that's racist. So take a listen to this exchange.
little ironic that the woman now who is likely going to win the 9th district in Tennessee is a black Republican woman as a result of this redistricting effort. It's likely going to be a black Republican woman who beats that old white man.
Could I make this very
But
simple
that's
point?
racist?
We're going to come back.
It actually is.
We're going to take a quick break, and then Tesla and Congressman, I'm going to have you both respond. We'll be right back.
And that right there is the part that Democrats do not want to deal with, because this entire argument is being sold as Republicans are trying to erase black representation. But then you look at what's actually happening, and the person who could benefit from the new map is a black Republican woman? Oh, wait a minute. So now what? Because Democrats are trying to defend a racially drawn district that currently helps elect a white Democrat man, while Republicans are saying, actually, this black Republican woman should have a shot here. And somehow Democrats want to call that racist. Come on now. I mean, really, you can't make this up. This is why the argument is so fake, because it was never really about race or about black voters being represented. It was about politics. And fine, okay, Republicans do not want Democrats to have safe seats. Okay, Democrats don't want Republicans to have safe seats. Fine. Everybody understands that. That's politics. We get that part. I don't think we're going to argue that part of it. But the manipulation comes in when Democrats pretend their map games are civil rights, while Republicans' map games are racism. That's the scam in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen. Because if this is really about black representation, Democrats would be celebrating a black woman possibly representing the district. That's their whole thing, right? DEI, everybody included, inclusion, people of color being able to represent their community. But they are not, because she's a Republican. And so what they really mean is not black voters need representation. No, that's not what they mean. What they mean is black voters need representation that benefits Democrats. And that is the difference, ladies and gentlemen. Because once a black candidate steps outside of the Democrat plantation, suddenly the representation does not count. Doesn't count anymore. Suddenly, what is it about? Suddenly the race card comes out, and suddenly the same people who claim to care about diversity, right? They start acting like a black Republican woman is invisible. And that's what we're seeing get exposed in this whole Tennessee fight right now. Race is just the cover story. Power is the real story. But those are my thoughts of the update. Now let me hear from you. Drop your comments down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in. Smash that thumbs up if you do enjoy the content. Subscribe for more. And as always, until next time.